For this 10th day of our trip, we decide to visit the Square Fort. We go towards the fort and we access it by a way next to the sea. There, we cross some people plunge into the sea. Some are filming and others are fishing. The sea offers us a breathtaking blue color. Located in the Saint-Roch Peninsula, the fort is built on a rocky outcrop, 26 meters above sea level. Its walkway rises to 43 meters and offers a 360-degree panoramic view. The fort is surrounded by a protected park of 4 hectares with typical Mediterranean flora and fauna. This park is a property of the Conservatoire du Littoral and is integrated into the Natura 2000 project. Thus, along the redesigned promenade, visitors can contemplate the magnificent view of the old town and enjoy the panorama of the sea and meet nightingales or turtle doves, hedgehogs, squirrels, and even red foxes. Botany lovers can admire many varieties of trees, shrubs, plants, and flowers. The entrance fee for the fort is €3 per person and it's really worth it. We begin our visit by the Saint Laurent Tower, which we can discover alone. The upper part is done with a guide, and we were lucky to have a wonderful guide who made us discover this place in every detail. We learned that the Square Fort is classified as a historical monument since 1938 and that it was transferred by the Army to the Ministry of Sports in 1967 along with all the sports facilities and surrounding military barracks. The fort was restored by volunteers between 1979 and 1985, and there is a very interesting photo gallery of its renovation. The Square Fort was finally bought by the city of Antibes Juan-les-Pins in 1997 and opened to the public in 1998. Originally, a Roman temple was built on this site, then a church at the beginning of the Christian era, and finally a chapel in homage to Saint Laurent in the 16th century. We discover the old chapel of the fort. It's by digging into the history of France and Europe that we understand how this place, originally dedicated to the practice of religious worship, became a military building. In order to face the attacks of the soldiers of Charles Quint, King Henri II launched the construction in 1550 of a circular tower on the chapel Saint Laurent. The tower was completed in 1553 and in 1565. 4 bastions were added, named after their geographical orientation: Bastion of Antibes, Corsica, France, and Nice. These paper ports, the name given to the bastions by the soldiers, are strategic points of surveillance from the covered way. The Square Fort owes its name to the fact that we can obtain a square by connecting the 4 extremities of the fort in an imaginary way. Moreover, the interior part of the fort also forms a square. The construction of the fort was wrongly attributed to Vauban, but in reality, he only modified certain aspects of it, enlarging the viewing areas of the terrace and tilting the slopes of the fort in favor of the ricochet of cannonballs in particular. It was used to guard the nearby border with the county of Nice and to defend the town of Antibes, the last French port before this border. The fort was operational by 1585. The use of Square Fort as a defense building spans over 3 centuries. Despite its role as a surveillance and deterrent, Square Fort has been attacked twice. in 1591 during the Wars of Religion, in 1746-1747 during the War of the Austrian Succession, Square Fort and Antibes were bombarded by the Austro-Sardinian artillery and the English fleet, but the stronghold held out against the siege. Significantly improved at the end of the 17th century by Vauban, the fort remained a strategic site until the 19th century. It was used as a training site for various military sports schools until 1967. We are now going up the walkways. The view is breathtaking. No wonder the fort has been the setting for several cult movies and even hosted the famous British Spy. In 1983, in the film Never Say Never Again, the spy played by Sir Sean Connery goes to Fort Square, where he faces his enemy, a member of the criminal organization Spectre. Bond and Domino, played by the splendid Kim Basinger, do not manage to defeat Largo. They escape from Square Fort on the horseback and jump into the sea to save themselves. And we end our visit on the walkway through which James Bond and Domino escaped. But don't worry, we won't take the same exit as them. Leave the fort and come across a gigantic statue of a poilu. After the World War II, to glorify the sacrifice of all those who had paid with their lives in defense of the country, monuments to the dead were erected in cities and villages. Antibes wanted to honor its dead 254 of its children who had given their lives to save the fatherland with an impressive monument by its size. A poilu who rest on a pedestal where the names of those who fell on the field of honor are engraved. At the top of the Garoupe Plateau, on the peninsula of Cap d'Antibes, is the Catholic Church Notre-Dame de la Garoupe. The site has long had a spiritual vocation. There, the Romans celebrated the moon goddess Selene. Each year, a festival recalls and solicits the protection that the Virgin offers to sailors since the 16th century, when her invocation chased away the bubonic plague from Antibes. As for the first pilgrimages, they date back to around the year 1000, and the millennium was celebrated in 1981. The building was registered as a historical monument on October 29, 1961. Nearby stands this lighthouse, which rises 103 meters above sea level. It's one of the most powerful lighthouses of the Mediterranean coast. Its luminous range is about 60 kilometers for the Navy and more than 100 kilometers for airplanes. The height of the building is 29 meters. The reconstruction of the lighthouse was completed in 1948, the original building, built in the 1830s, having been destroyed during the Second World War. After this very interesting day, we decide to go on the sea at the Cap d'Antibes and enjoy the sunset on our stand-up paddle boards.